It's been like a week. It's literally been, this is like the first week of the record being out.
Yes. Yes.
Very
And
exciting.
it's been amazing, man. I mean, to me, releasing the, apart from being on stage, I think releasing the album, it's the climax of all the effort and hard work we put, like in the band. It's the most anticipated moment because that will define that the release week will define everything else, all the tours and everything. Because, like if the album's well received, then everything gets easier from then on. And it's been great so far. So it's been a very fulfilling week, let's say. And the interview thing to me, it's the best. I'm a chatterbox. I love talking. So that's honestly a pleasure to me.
Those are always the best interviews, though, so feel free to give me as much info as possible. It's just really cool because I discovered you guys in Worcester when I saw you open for a Morbid Angel and Revocation. And I'm like, oh my God, I was blown away. Then I really got
Thank
into
you.
you guys. And then this album just dropped and it's like, oh my God. Like it's so good. I see people saying all the time that it's like the best death metal album of the year. Amazing reception, like amazing reception. Um, what has been your reaction to like the initial fan reaction to this record?
I'm like, I'm so happy. First of all, thank you. I'm so glad you liked the show. That was a very special tour for us. And um and thanks for the nice words on the album. It's a very special album to me. I'm just overall happy it's out there, like in the world, and people uh, are getting in touch with it, and like to the music and everything. But the feedback has been great so far. Great. I'm surprised. Like, of course, we believe our music. Of course, like we know that the songs are cool and everything, but getting this feedback from the fans, it's been just amazing. Not only fans, but like media and like some of my idols, like they've all like really enjoyed the album. And it's definitely different from Echoes of the Soul, which was already like well received for a first album of a new band. But with Shades of Sorrow, I think we're getting to a new level, and that's really important. But the feedback's just been amazing. I'm a very sensitive, emotional person, and the lyrics in this album, they are really important to me. And I've started getting feedback on that, like fans really relating to the lyrics and everything, and that means the world to me. Because like I do that, I do the whole music thing because that's what I love the most. Like I, especially after the pandemic, I cannot see myself not doing this. I think that's what I do best, and that's what I like doing the most. And that's why I do it, because it's naturally something I have to do, even if I wasn't in a band that's, like well received out there, I would still be doing art because that's just who I am. And so yeah, I firstly do it for myself, and then like if fans can relate, that's beautiful. So to me, it's been just perfect to see that I like the album and people like the album and people can relate to the album. That's just a very special combo to me.
Totally. And it's so cool seeing that it's almost on like the top 20 German charts too.
Exactly. I got the news today and I was so excited. We're on number 23, and that's amazing. I mean, we're not talking about like metal charts, it's like general charts. So that
Yeah.
truly means something on the first week to get something like this is just amazing. I'm really really happy, and that's actually a nice fuel too. Like because I'm like, okay, it's well received, so let's just get out there and play these songs live, and like just do our thing. It's really inspiring, actually. Like to get our music this validated, it's really cool.
Yeah. And it must feel amazing as a recording artist to have a record out that is getting just such amazing reception. I'd love to know, even with the first record, it's a little more thrashy than this one. I'd love
Mhm.
to know what some of your influences are in general. I know you have a very wide net. of artists you like.
Yeah, let's let's keep it in metal. Otherwise, there's going to be Beyonce, and metalheads are going to be like upset with me. But when it comes to metal, my overall influences, they don't change a lot. Like when it comes to bass guitar, it's always probably always going to be like Steve Harris and Steve DiGiorgio, who played in Sadas and Death and currently in Testament. They're always going to be, and Geddy Lee from Rush. And when it comes to vocals, Chuck from Death, John Tardy from Obituary, and they're always going to be, like the ones I look up to when I have to start doing my thing. When it comes to the albums, I mean, you get this thrashy vibe in Echoes of the Soul because before Crypta, I was writing thrash metal for like nearly a decade. So although I tried to leave it in the past, it's just in my veins, like it's probably my favorite metal genre alongside with death metal. So I was just very used to writing thrash metal, so that's why you get this thrashy vibe in there. Now in Shades of Sorrow, I was more into death metal writing already, and I can't remember which were my influences back then with Echoes of the Soul, but probably like Vader, and definitely Vader and Morbid Angel and Cannibal Corpse here and there, and of course Death and Behemoth. And when it comes to this album, my influences changed a little bit. Like Florida death metal is always going to be a thing for me. There's no way it will ever not be present in the way I write. But I was really trying to bring this very emotional kind of vibe to this album to match the lyrics and the concept of the album, of course. So I was still like highly influenced by Behemoth because they do have this, like very like darker melodies and stuff like that. But I was also really influenced by Opeth. It's one of my favorite bands, and they certainly know how to bring this death metal vibe along with emotional riffs and notes and stuff like that. Not that I could get any closer to that, any close to them, because I'm pretty sure that are notes that are only in Michael's guitars. Like there are notes that I cannot replicate because they do not exist on my bass. I'm pretty sure of that. So, but yeah, I was really, really, I think my main influences laid on Behemoth and Opeth when it comes
Cool.
to the songs I wrote. And when it comes to instruments, like vocals mainly, I was highly influenced by Tatiana from Ginger. Not only vocally, because she's an amazing singer, but so I was trying to get, like, I love her lows when it comes to vocals. So I was trying to reach that on my own technique, and I kind of was able to do it, but she's a queen, man. But also she really inspired. I like the way she writes her lyrics. She writes in a very poetic way here and there. So I was trying to bring that. She uses a lot of metaphors and stuff like that, and I really wanted to have this in this new album. And also her vocal patterns. Like I feel like I was never that creative with my vocal patterns, and she really helped me with that. Like indirectly, although we're friends nowadays, but it's not that I bothered her, hey, can you teach me stuff? But like listening to Ginger, I think it truly helped me on getting more creative when it comes to vocal patterns. But yeah.
Really cool stuff. I think it's a great time to be a death metal band right now because, you look at Morbid Angel and stuff, and back in the day, to really get your music out there, you needed to have CDs. It depended what your local record store has. Now it's streaming. Like people can listen to Crypta anywhere in the world. And I think it's really benefited the band and a lot of death metal bands around. Do you feel streaming has really benefited the death metal community?
Definitely. Is mainly for Latin metal bands, like, because if it was like Sepultura was a miracle, man, back then. Like I didn't live the 80s and 90s. I was a kid, but my dad did, and he's a metalhead. And I know how tough it was for you to get whatever. And for you to get your music out there, it was even more complicated. So it was really hard. And I think that's the good thing about streaming. I think there's a lot of debatable things on streaming that I'm definitely not that kind of person that says like streaming and download ruined the scene, because I think no, I tend to think in a more positive way. Maybe because I'm from the download generation, but but so yeah, there are debatable things like like of how much bands get from that, and that's a very present debate and everything. So it's not the ideal, it's not perfect, but it definitely helps because like uh I think my main thing when writing music, as I said to you, when in making music, it's of course first me fulfilling my urge to express myself through art, but also getting my music out there. Like I would love people all around the world to listen to the message I'm trying to pass on through my music. And then streaming definitely helps. Like streaming gets you out there. I mean, there's not a lot you have to do to get your music there. Promoting is another thing, but if your music's out there, like it will pop up at people's playlists eventually. Like it being out there enables, like definitely helps more people to get to know your music. So I think in this sense, streaming is really crucial for bands nowadays. Like I can't imagine how hard it would have been for Nervosa, my previous band, and Crypta to be out there without streaming, because like like Brazil, everyone knows Brazil, everyone loves Brazil, but still, like if it wasn't streaming, I think it would be so hard uh to get our music out there, because we're not a part of the main markets like the US and Europe. It's way easier for, I'm not disrespecting any the work of any European bands, but it is easier still nowadays with streaming. And that's something I was talking to with people at their label. I still feel it's difficult for us as a Brazilian band to get in those markets. We are there, people know us, but still it's hard to get in, like to occupy more spaces being a Brazilian band. So if it wasn't for streaming, I have no idea how it would be. It would be definitely way more difficult.
Yeah, especially with how aggressive the US music industry is in general, and how it's like it takes like 9 months to press records and stuff. It is just totally crazy, but it is cool. You guys are on Napalm Records. You have like a wooden box set, I believe,
Yeah.
and like the coolest splatter vinyl I've also
Yeah.
ever seen. So it's cool. You guys also have physical media. How do you get involved with Napalm?
I when I was in Nervosa, my previous band, I was dealing with Napalm all the time. I was the one mostly talking to them since the first email. And we always had an amazing relationship. I love the label. I really do love the label. And the moment I quit Nervosa, I was saying a very dramatic, not dramatic, but like sensitive farewell email. It was like, I love you, Wow. It was a pleasure working with you. And I remember the main guy in there saying, hey, the CEO actually saying, goodbye and everything. But if you're ever doing something else, make sure we are the first ones to listen, because we're very interested in whatever you're doing. And that was a relief for me, because I was in a very bad place emotionally when I left Nervosa, thinking I would never ever be relevant again. And having this feedback from our guy there in Napalm was very important. So I did that. The moment we had a little something, I sent it. And the moment we announced the band, it was like, I want to sign you. And that's how it went. It was basically most of my apparatus I have now in Crypta, I brought from my times with Nervosa naturally, because I was doing that. I was talking to our agents, I was talking to our label. So they all naturally were interested in whatever I was doing, and believed what I was doing. So that's how I got in touch with Napalm. And they're the best, man. And like all this beautiful stuff you mentioned, like the splatter, it's insane. Like I don't know
So
if you got
cool.
the physical copy, It's insane. It's beautiful. And it was all their idea. Like they we have an amazing team there, and they're always trying to, like do the best, and it was their idea to have the wooden box because they were trusting the release so much, and it's out there. And I love, you mentioned like us having a lot of physical media. That's one good thing about metal. Like we are all in some way collectors. Like it's a scene that definitely likes to collect stuff and like memorabilia and stuff like that. And that's nowadays exactly what helps the bands, like in times where streaming doesn't pay that well, and there's merch cuts in like venues like more and more. uh Buying merch directly from bands, it was what's making the business alive. Like it, buying our stuff is definitely the biggest way of helping the band. So and I with Crypta, me and Luana, our drummer, we had like many dreams, like when it comes to merch, like stuff we'd see other bands doing. So Crypta is actually an outlet to our bucket list of merchandise from bands. So that's how we do it. And also we like to provide different material and everything because we know our fans like that too. They love getting as much stuff they can from us. And so that's why we decided to have so many different stuff. And then the label came with all of those awesome ideas, and we were like, of course, beautiful. And yeah, the physical material is beautiful.
Really awesome. Just also such a great sounding label as well, regardless of just the sound of the records. Really amazing. What's the best way for fans to like, should they write from your website, directly from the label?
I think every way is welcome. Like, because if you buy from the label, it helps us with our numbers there, and we also get royalties. We get royalties from basically wherever you buy stuff. So it's important to get the, like labels online shop going because, like it's good for our numbers there. We'll soon have our own website back on track, and that's really important too because that will directly help us with our cash flow for investing in new stuff. And when we're touring, definitely buy directly from us because that's what keeps the tours alive and doing well. We really need merch money from the tour for ourselves and for like for the health of the tour. So always are welcome. As I said, they serve different purposes financially, but they are all really helpful. So yeah.
Cool. Now, when did you feel you wanted Crypta to be more than just a side project? Was there like a defining moment where you're like, I want to pursue this fully?
um I actually had no other because like it was supposed to be a side project when we first created it in around June 2019, when we were still in Nervosa. It was created just to be a different creative outlet, so maybe we could feel more inspired in Nervosa, but also to have like a different band environment because things were not the same there in Nervosa. We left the band for a reason. And so it was supposed to be, like just a side fun. But then when things got to the point they got, and I really needed to quit the band, then it was crucial and so important that Crypta was already something. And when I meant something, it had a name and a couple of riffs, but still it was something because again, I was in a very terrible place emotionally when I left Nervosa, and Crypta was literally the reason that made me wake up in the morning and feel motivated about something. So it, from a side project, it became my healing. It became my hope for keeping on doing music. So I truly had no choice. I was like, it's either this or I don't know what the I'm gonna do with my life. So yeah, that's the moment I left Nervosa. I was grieving for a little bit, but then I was like, well, I have something and I'll make sure I'll nourish this so I can, like keep on doing my thing.
Totally. And you must feel amazing now with how successful Crypta's become with just the
I
sophomore record too.
I still like, of course, we are a very hard working band. And when you work a lot and put a lot of effort into something and love to, um, uh, you of course expect, like something back eventually. So we definitely had hopes for Crypta, like we had high hopes for Crypta, but we're still to this day and more we get surprised and amazed on how well things are going. We never expected to bid this way. I personally never expected to bid this way because I have anxiety disorder. So you know how this affects your mind. You're basically a failure. Everything sucks. Everything is a catastrophe. So to me, to see Crypta thriving, it's a personal victory to me. It's like it's an argument against my own demons. It's like, no, it it is something. Keep on doing it, although sometimes it's really hard. So to me, till to this day, I still get surprised and amazed. And people around me have like a more realistic feel towards Crypta. To me, I'm always in this humble side of like, maybe we'll get this, maybe we'll get there. And like I remember when we got the offer from Vakken, like right when we released our first album, I was like, I remember me talking on a call to our agent. I was like, what the fuck, man? How did this happen? He was like, I don't know, but just have fun. I was like, till the day I got there and I stepped on the holy ground, I was like, they're gotta be kidding me. It's gotta be a joke. It's gotta be, like they're tricking me somehow. It can't be. But then it was true. So that's how I feel. And I always want to feel that. That's why I try not to put I have expectations for my stuff, but realistic ones because I still want to feel this. I still want to be surprised with my deeds.
Yeah, yeah, very cool to hear. And that walk-in festival is like really, and it's so cool that you guys got on that. Now, I just love the material the band's put out. I'd love to know what the band's creative process looks like.
It's very organic. We never determined how we want to sound. The only thing we did for Shades of Sorrow is we identify what was it that people called Crypta's essence sound wise, and then we kept that and started experimenting from that. That's how we do, and then the rest is natural. Of course, we said also we're still a death metal band. It's got to be death metal, but let it flow. So everything happens very organically. The main writers for riffs on Shades of Sorrow were me and Taina. We wrote together 95% of the riffs in the album. There's Lord of Ruins. This song is mainly written by our drummer. I mean the melodies, but when it comes to melodies, it's mainly me and Taina, and we have a great chemistry working together. So it was just great. It was really great and natural. Like we were just feeling and vibing with the songs and experimenting a lot. Some stuff we felt it didn't fit, but most of the stuff we tried is there in the album. So we just let it flow organically, like we try not to limit ourselves musically or in any way exactly so we can be free to experiment. And I think this is something you can hear in Shades of Sorrow. Like you never know where the song is going because it's like super death metal, and then there's the like a very emotional note, and that's because we just let it flow. We just let it flow. We like I bring a riff, and then like I usually come with a more structured idea because I'm very methodic. I just can't like, yeah, I have this riff and then let's sit. No, I usually have like, okay, I want a song that would probably go this and that way musically, and I want riffs that sound like this and that, and then I start doing it, and then Taina comes and adds some layers of guitars and gives some ideas and everything, and then the same thing happens otherwise. Sometimes she comes with an idea, and I'm like, yeah, maybe we should add this and that here, but it's all very natural, fluid, let's say.
Cool to hear, because you can definitely hear that death influence as well. And it's just like,
Yeah,
so it's such a cool record. I'd love to know what
thank
the
you.
writing and recording process was like for Echoes of the Soul.
For Shades of Sorrow.
The first one.
Ah, the first one.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
okay.
first,
So
so the first record, I'd love to know,
yeah,
because it is very different actually. It's
yeah.
it's much more thrashier. I'd love to know what the writing recording process was like for that, because with the new one out, it's really cool hearing that. And there's definitely that death influence in there with the new guitarists and stuff, but I'd love to know, because with the thrashiness, and especially coming right out of Nervosa,
Uh-huh.
what was that like?
Yeah, I although I knew that Crypta was like a blank page when I left Nervosa, I was like, I can write anything I want in there. I still wanted to distance myself from thrash metal just so, like it was not about the same thing. It was a new life, a new career, and I wanted to add other elements. But I think on Echoes of the Soul, we were still experimenting and trying to find what is our sound, like, because we wanted to be a death metal band. On the beginning we labeled ourselves like old school death metal band, but then like the moment we started writing, we saw it was going like other places and we let it flow. But yeah, on the first album we were still experimenting. We didn't know what Crypta was, like, so we were just trying to find that out. And so that's why it's more diverse, let's put it this way. Like there are many like thrashy songs and some other songs, the death metal songs, they don't follow like one rule. They're very different from each other. So that's basically because we were trying to find out like who we were musically. And also what really impacted was uh now comparing the two albums is that back then I wrote this album, that album Echoes of the Soul, along with our guitarist at that time, Sonia. And she also was experimenting a lot, and she really liked melodies, but more like epic melodies and everything. So that brought that heavy metal thing here and there you can hear and stuff like that. So yeah, we were still trying to find our sound. That's why Echoes of the Soul is so different from Shades of Sorrow. As for Shades of Sorrow, it was more like with the feedback from Echoes of the Soul, we knew what it is that the fans identified as our identity, which is like melody and aggressiveness together. So we kept that and started experimenting from that. So we kept our essence and then improved our essence. So that's why Shades of Sorrow sounds so different. And also, the new guitarist, she wrote her solos only, the Jessica. The riffs
Interesting.
were written by me and Taina, and it was the first album with Taina writing, and we had a good chemistry together because we both like. I learned how to love melodies because I like it raw, like Florida death metal style.
Rash.
But I learned how to like them, and Taina likes melodies, and we found out that we really agreed and liked darker melodies, more emotional melodies instead of like more epic, heavy metalish melodies. So that's why the whole album sounds more solid on this one, because like besides us knowing where we wanted to go, who we are and where we wanted to go, we also had a good chemistry. We like similar stuff when it comes to melodies. So that's why. As for the recording process, and this is a that you asked, and there's a question I've been asked a lot, if we felt more pressure recording Shades of Sorrow, and I'll tell you that the recording process and writing process of Echoes of the Soul was way more difficult for us as a band. Exactly because like we knew there was a lot of expectations. Like people were crazy at back then. Like they didn't know like if me and Luana were still making music. And after we announced, like, how is it going to be? Oh my God, it's not thrash metal, it's death metal. What kind of death metal? What are they doing? What are they? So people were insane back then, like with their expectations. And of course, that puts an underlying pressure to when it comes to writing music and putting the music out there. Not that we adjusted anything that we wanted to do to that, but that plays a part. We knew fans were like excited, but also curious, but also like doubtful about how it was all going to be. So the writing process was more tense, and the recording process was way more difficult because we were like so perfectionist. We were like, we need to deliver the best possible because that's our spot. And then we pushed ourselves way more than it was needed, and that took a toll on the recording process. When it came to Shades of Sorrow, we knew we had a fan base already. Like we knew that there were at least some people who liked the band and who were overall just excited, like not like curious, oh my God, how it's gonna be. They were just like, I'll just bring it on. We just want to listen to your new stuff. And that made things way lighter. So the writing process was super chill, and the recording process was way better than the first one, way better, because like we had space to let our emotions flourish and not only like worrying if people were gonna like that or not.
Cool. Yeah. And I just love the new record, Shades of Sorrow, so much because it's such like an evolution of every part of the band, Even like your vocals are so dynamic in the new record, especially balancing the screams and the growls. Was that like a conscious thing going into this album?
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
definitely. Thank you for noticing that. Actually, my idea was to use a different technique on this album. I used fry scream and I wanted to use something else, but I was not sure enough. It was still a new technique to me, and I didn't want to ruin anything and then listen to the album like, I could have done better. So I was like, I'll save it for some other time. It's just her second album. But by exploring this other technique, I ended up finding out new stuff on my own vocals, on my own uh, technique, and that played an important part for this difference you can notice in the vocal technique in this album. But also, this is a very like, I'm a person that I gotta be connected to the music I'm writing, otherwise, like I can't fake like enjoying my songs and stuff like that. So, and this album is very personal to me when it comes to the lyrical content. It's extremely personal to me. A lot of people can relate to it, and that was the main idea. I don't want to be selfish and write an album just for myself. I really wanted people to feel embraced by the songs in times of need to. But yeah, it's a very emotional album to me because it's very personal, and that played a huge part when it comes to creating the vocal patterns, like because I know what I was feeling when I wrote that song, and I know what I was feeling when I was feeling the feelings that made me write those lyrics. So that played an important part on me creating the vocal patterns, because I wanted to be able to express these feelings through my vocals, like, and the way I found that was exactly experimenting on what I already have. We're not like some bands that, like use clean vocals and growls and stuff like that, which makes it easier to bring this variation of vibes in the song. Like we only depend on the vocals and like the overall melodies of the song. So I was trying to experiment on that, like, yeah. So if it's a more aggressive part, I'll need to add like growls. And if it's a more like desperate part, a cry for help, I'll use like the really high pitched tones in my voice. So it was on purpose. My vocals were created to match the feelings of the lyrical content. And also, I made sure I did that. Like it was something planned technically too, because I always felt I was not that creative. I mean, I love everything I've written so far. I think there is creativity in there, but all my vocal patterns on all the other albums I did before, they ended up going to the same place. And I really wanted to try something different. And then Tatiana from Ginger was a huge inspiration on that, because not only she's a great singer, and I observed when she changed from growls to clean vocals and try to do the same with my growls and high pitched vocals and screams, but also the way she writes lyrics. She uses a very poetic tone to it, and like she she uses a lot of metaphors, and I really wanted to have that on my lyrics. But also her vocal patterns, they're really creative, like, because Ginger is such a creative band, so like naturally her vocals need to match that, and she is very good at it. And then she was a huge inspiration on helping me to take my vocal patterns to other places. And I'm so glad. I was still, like, I have anxiety, and also like I'm a musician. Usually we tend to have like low self-esteem when it comes to our creations. But I was like, yeah, I think it's a nice album, but no big deal. But then when it comes to my vocals, and then when I started getting the feedback, everyone was like, wow, your vocals are so different in here. And I was like, really? They were like, yeah, man, I never heard you doing like this, such a low note. And I was like, oh, good. And then they were like, oh my God, I feel like when you sing this, I feel something here. I was like, okay, mission accomplished then. So now I believe that there was really an upgrade, vocally speaking, to this album. That's really
Totally. And
cool.
yeah, in every element, and there's so much that you guys built upon on already a great existing like debut record.
Yeah.
Now, I saw you guys on the Morbid Angel tour. We all know some of the tragedies that happened on that tour.
Oh,
What
man.
are
Yeah.
some of your takeaways? Not only with like Revocation being like they've been in the game for a while now, but Morbid Angel, death metal legends, and just touring with them. There must be so many things you guys learned as a band, just being around those guys.
Definitely, definitely. I've got so many good things out of that tour, and I'll tell you, except for that specific day of the tornado and the surrounding days, that was the best tour I've ever done. Exactly because of the package, like the bands and everything. So, okay. The first thing is like touring with Morbid Angel was on my bucket list for forever, because they are the death metal band that made me get into death metal. So that was a dream come true to me, especially knowing that Trey himself liked the band and specifically suggested us to be the opening act of the tour. So
Wow.
that truly means a lot. And I'll never be able to thank him enough. He is one of a kind. And I'm so thankful for him to give us such a great opportunity. And so, yeah, it was an amazing tour overall, an amazing first experience in the US for Crypta, because I knew we had fans in the US already, but such a big tour was a great window of opportunity for us to showcase who we are to a larger amount of people that we would have been able to get if it was like a small, tiny headlining tour. So that was beautiful. And it was great to see the feedback from the US, because I think the US are the biggest death metal scene in the whole world. So I was not sure. Like, I knew from the numbers we get from royalties and streaming numbers and everything, I knew people liked us in there, but like feeling this when we were playing there, it was just great and inspiring for us to, like draw the next plans of the band. And so that was also really important. And but mainly, man, the bands, like it was the best tour because of the bands that were there. Like, I've toured a lot with Crypta and with Nervosa. I mean, a lot, like big tours with some other bands. And there was never one tour where there wasn't like any beef between bands or band members. There's always a little something, always someone who's like too crazy, always like little disagreements here and there. When it came to this tour, it was perfect. Like, it was perfect. Perfect. Like, we were all hanging out nearly every day together. We were all going to each other buses. Like, the guys would go to our RV, would go to Morbid Angel's bus here and there. It was perfect. There was such a vibe. Every band was so helpful towards each other, and there was no technical like disagreements. Like we were, it was amazing. And also the thing that made us move on that tour from the terrible tragedy that happened at the Apollo Theater was the sense of brotherhood in the band, amongst the bands, because we survived that together. Because like one day one of us was feeling bad because of what happened, the other day it was the other one, so we were always there to hug each other and say supportive words and say, hey, we're doing all right, like, so we survived that as a family. And that is a valuable thing that I brought from that tour, that the sense of family between bands can really help us overcome any struggle on tour, because touring is basically facing struggles every day, even more than people think. Not in that dimension, but but anyway, so that was a beautiful thing that I took from that tour. It was just amazing. And besides that, now not relating to those bands specifically, but also an overall theme, I felt like that tour renewed my passion for metal, because like
Wow.
we got our RV destroyed. We were desperate, man. Like if we had to pay $60,000 from our pockets, which in the end were $81,000 from our
Jesus.
pockets. I mean, our currency in Brazil is fucked up. We were like, we don't know. You can buy a house with that in Brazil. So we were like,
Huh.
we're fucked. We're fucked. And then we got all that support, and the metal community like got together to help us. That was beautiful to see. I felt like it doesn't matter how bad it gets, metal is always going to have my back, as it has always got so far. But you get used to it, like, because you're inside the death metal scene, the metal scene, so you get used to how things are. But I forgot that when we want to, we have this amazing sense of global community that can truly help, like bands and everyone in need. So that tour definitely renewed my passion for metal. I and for life too, because I thought I was gonna die. For a moment, I remember hugging my drummer, lights were out, building was shaking, and I was like, I'm gonna die, man. I thought that. I
Jesus.
was like, yeah, I was like, it's been a good life so far. I was hugging my drummer, looking at her, we were screaming, and I was thinking, it's been a good life. At least I'm dying doing what I love the most. And then so I really thought I was gonna die. And so yeah, I love life a little bit more after I left there. I was like, I survived a fucking tornado, man. Not everyone was lucky enough that night to survive that. So I was like, I have enough fuel to keep on going. Now I can overcome other stuff.
Jesus Christ. And beautifully said. And it's like with this new album out, it's really awesome to see that you guys, got a win, after all
Yeah,
this, like this cursed tour. And it's really cool to hear that the community,
yeah.
metal in general has just been such a tight community, and it's really
It's
awesome. And I'm glad you guys got back on your feet. And how terrifying. Like, oh my God. But
yeah.
I'm
It
glad you
was.
guys are still a band.
We are,
Wow.
and that's the thing. Like, and that's the thing with me too. Usually with like daily routine stuff, I tend to get more, like overwhelmed and annoyed or whatever. But when it comes to like big stuff like that, I always try to be still amidst chaos. And I wrote that on Lord of Ruins, our new song. And we really stood together as a band after the most horrific experience we'll probably ever go through, because I really don't want to go through anything like that again. So so yeah, it was tough, but we survived, and I think we are stronger than we were before, as people, as a band, and as a metal community, because really the community really stopped and focused on helping us and everyone on that tour, including, it was not only us, including the fans that were injured. I remember I would post daily GoFundMe pages to support the family of Fred Livingston, the fan that died. I even get a knot in my throat every time I have to talk about him dying at the show, because that's the most horrifying thing I still have to live with. And all the other injured victims, like, the metal community made sure we covered all their costs, and that was beautiful. Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars raised by devoted fans, devoted metalheads all around the globe for a cause. It was beautiful to see.
Really amazing, and really cool to hear from you, especially, being at that like that tour and like
Yeah.
hearing everything that happened. It's really cool to hear that like from you, and know that, that's what happened, and everything you
Yeah.
went through and how stronger you are now after
Yeah.
these events. This has been a pretty sick interview. I'd love to know, what's the best way for fans to stay updated with everything Crypta?
I think our social media. We're very active as a band on social media and also on our personal profiles. So uh, if you don't want to miss anything about us, make sure you're you're up to date there in our social media, checking here and there, because we literally post everything there, from stories to posts or whatever, on tour, outdoors, outside of tours. So best way to support, not to support, but to like be closer to us is definitely on social media. And to support us, merch. Buy as much as you can, not only because it helps us financially, but it's truly heartwarming to get on a stage and see you wearing our t-shirts and everything. It's really, really cool.
Must be a great feeling.
Yeah, definitely is.
Fernanda, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thank you. It's been a fun chat. I love doing that. Thank you for being, I feel like uh artists have so much to say when they release an album. Of course, like art wise, it's there what we want to communicate, but there's a lot we want to say to fans, and there's not always the chance to be there at the merch booth. I'm there every night, but I mean, you can't be talking like an hour talks with fans every night with each fan. So I think you guys are a very important bridge that connects us to the fans, and I thank you for this interview, and I really hope fans can feel a little bit closer to me and the band with this interview. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you too for the amazing music, and just like, it was so
Thanks.
awesome discovering you guys in Worcester, and just cannot wait to see the path you guys go on, in the future. Like,
Thank
just
you so
set up
much.
for so much success. This has been awesome. I'm Brandon Baddock, and this is Disturbing the Priest.